You're listening to the Tao of Indifference, sex, dating, and relationship advice for an indifferent world. For more advice and tips, check out taoofindifference.com or follow us on Twitter at indifferent_D.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 9 of the Tao of Indifference. Today's topic is on flirting. Now, for those of you unfamiliar, flirting is how people show interest in people, obviously. And there are 3 parts of flirting, and I'm going to break it down that way, and that's how I'm going to address it. So the 3 parts of flirting that I've identified are the approach, the technique, and things you want to avoid, sort of the conversation no-nos. So let's start with the approach. So there's 3 ways to really approach someone when you're flirting. And these are sort of your openers and your way-in and how you form the conversation and what really is the background and the basis of your conversation. The approach can either be situational, personal, or external. Your situational approach is based on the situation you're in, whether it's you're in a bar and there's a basketball game on, you're in a bar and the World Cup is on, go US. You are at a dinner party and you're at a friend's apartment or whatever it is, it's based solely on the situation that you're in. You walk up to a guy you like and you say, "Oh man, I can't believe that the US is beating Belgium." That's sort of your situational approach. Next is personal. Now, personal is going to be something very specific to that person. Personal. There you go. It could be their jobs or interests, things that you either know about them or things that you ask about them, right? So you can go up to someone that you know through a friend and say, "Oh, I heard you really love crocheting. I also love crocheting." Or, "Hey, I learned that you work in travel. I love to travel." You know, it's all about something personal that you can connect with them on. Now, the external is obviously the most superficial, and it is the purely based on what you can obviously see, how they look, what they're wearing, hair color, eye color, the brand they're wearing, the accessories, etc. Anything that really is focused on what you can see and anyone could see. I would say that this one is not only the most superficial in the literal sense of the word, but also the easiest one that people can brush off. If you walk up to a girl and say, "Hey, you're cute," she's going to say thank you or nothing, or be offended because really she's probably had more substance than being attractive. So they all 3 have valid approach. They're all valid approaches. I wouldn't list it if I didn't think it. External is a valid approach, but you just have to be careful how you play it, and you don't want to make it all about someone's breast or, how tight their butt looks or what have you. But, you can compliment someone on the beautiful necklace they're wearing or the great watch that they have or that awesome pocket square or that, really crisp jeans or what have you. But be wary of making it all about how they look. Like, "Oh, you're the hottest person I've ever seen." It's not the best way to flirt with someone, but if you say, "Wow, that suit looks really good on you. It's great. Where do you get your suit tailored?" And, you can always compliment someone and make it external and it can work. Or you can compliment someone and make it external and it could backfire. The same with personal. If you are sort of delving too much into their personal lives, it may come off as sort of creepy because you are too knowledgeable having just met them. And same with situational. There is a fine line with flirting, and what you want to do is make it very specific in either of these settings, but not too specific where it comes off as being someone who's actively just trying to talk to them, and more specific and casual, I guess is a good way to put it. A good example is if it's external and it's specific and casual. Today, I am wearing a black and white checkered shirt with small checkers. So someone could say to me, "Oh, I really like your shirt. I think it's cute." If it's personal, someone would say, "Oh, I heard you write a dating blog. What's the website?" And start talking to me about that. If it's situational, someone could walk into the room I'm in now and say, hey, are you recording your podcast? That's cool. I listen to podcasts too. And not tell me all about why you started a blog. That's not a great first line. So once you've got the approach out of the way, and remember, you can combine these. So it can be a situational and a personal. Oh man, this game is really awesome. I heard you're really into sports. I heard you played basketball in college or what have you. But generally, any of your approaches will split into those three. Now, when it comes to technique, these are techniques that don't apply to one of the approaches in particular. These are techniques for flirting, period. And really, the first one and most important is that being engaged is engaging. When you see someone and they seem like they're paying attention to you and they seem like they're really focused on your conversation, there is nothing more attractive to other people, and it puts out attractiveness. When you talk to someone and you ask them why they love to travel, and you listen actively, and you wait for them to finish speaking, and then you speak, that shows them that you're actually paying attention. Now, a lot of people don't get asked questions about themselves unless they're ridiculously attractive or in a setting or work in a setting or live in a setting where people ask them a lot of questions. If you're a bartender, people probably ask you a lot of questions. If you are a bookkeeper, you probably don't get a lot of personal questions or questions in general because your job is mainly, dealing with bookkeeping. So people when they speak, they want to be heard, especially if you're someone who's not used to being heard. So when you really are engaged in what someone is saying, you then become more attractive. It's not to say that everything you do then will be the most attractive thing they've ever experienced, but you already have a leg up on someone who says, oh, you're hot, so tell me about yourself, and then interrupts them. You want to be engaged in what they're saying, and you don't want to make the conversation one-sided, but you also want to have ebb and flow. Your next technique is to exude positive body language. Smiles are important. Smiling changes the way you speak. I'm smiling now, and my voice goes up an octave. It's less low. It's less formal. It becomes something that it sounds better. Everyone just sounds better when they're smiling, and you actually become more attractive when you smile. It's just scientifically proven. People just tend to be more attractive when they smile. You also want to make eye contact with someone when you're talking to them. You don't want to stare in their eyes intensely, but you want to make eye contact, and which is sort of goes back into being engaged. Eye contact shows that you're really paying attention to someone. You also want to stand upright. You don't want to hunch over. You don't want to slouch. You want to face them. You want to keep your arms not crossed. Crossing your arms is a sign that all humans detect as being closed off. You want to not have your hands in fists. I don't know if anyone does that, but if you do, stop. It's a terrible idea. And you want to face them head on. You don't want to angle away from them. You don't want to keep looking around. You really want to be looking at them, smiling, and facing them in a way that you're giving them undivided attention with your body language and also your actual attention. Now, while you're flirting, and I'm assuming that you've approached them, you sparked a conversation, make sure that you ask them open-ended questions. You don't ask them, do they live in New York? That's a yes, no. It's yes or no. Do they live in New York? Yes. No. What brought you to New York? If they're someone who's not a native, what do you love most about New York? What can't you live without? Things like that. What do you miss about home? These are questions that are in that same field of location, but not necessarily a yes or no. Do you live in Bushwick? Yes. What made you move to Bushwick? I mean, why not Greenpoint? Why not Williamsburg? Something like that. Something that gets the ball rolling. And if you're making it a personal question that is open-ended, people love that. Unless they're not attracted to you in any way and don't want to talk to you in any way. If you ask someone a personal question that is open-ended, they're going to eat it up. There's some people, of course, who don't like to speak about themselves, but they're probably not somebody that you're flirting with. Those people tend to be pretty hard to flirt with if they don't sort of reciprocate your conversation. The next thing you want to do, and it's not let me not say next. Another technique is to go with the flow. Conversation is flowing. You do not try to direct it. Conversation is like a river, and it splits off and it meets back up with itself, goes off on tangents and estuaries, or, I'm terrible with water metaphors, but a conversation really has to flow, and you can't direct a river. When you do, it sort of ruins it. Just go with it. If it gets uncomfortable for either one, drop a subject or walk away. But if the conversation's going well, don't try to make it about something else. And finally, you want to get physical. I'm not saying you want to start groping this person because you just met them, or maybe you just really started sort of a kindling of a romantic relationship with this person. But when you're talking to someone and you're talking about any subject and something's funny, you may lightly touch them and say, "Oh my God, that was so amazing." Initiate contact, not gropey contact, but initiate contact and see their reaction. And when I say initiate contact, I do not mean to touch anyone in a spot that would be sensitive to them. Maybe touch their arm and gauge where they are. If you touch their arm and they give off a vibe of, "This really grossed me out that he touched me," maybe don't touch them again. And maybe that's a sign that they're not attracted to you. Of course, if you want to play it safe, and I would do this a lot because I'm a very large man and I don't want to make anyone feel like they're obligated to talk to me, I would touch someone on their arm and then I would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch you. I don't know where your boundaries are. Is that okay?" If they said no, it'd be like, "Great, now I know where I stand." And it's very clear cut. And if someone's attracted to you, they'll laugh it off and say, "Yeah, no, it's fine." Again, you're not forcing anyone to do anything at this point. You're just sort of seeing where their attraction is physically. People can be attracted to you mentally and not want to date you, and they enjoy the flirting, but that's a good way to sort of build a connection. Humans build connections by touch. 9 times out of 10, if you're attracted to someone and you hug them and you keep hugging them every day, you actually build an attraction to them and you build a chemical attraction to them. Okay, so that's your technique. And again, your approach and your technique can be melded together to ask certain types of questions, especially when it comes to the open-ended questions. So if you're talking about a situational story or you're asking situational questions and it's about, say, your own body language or what have you, these things are sort of the framework that guides your flirting. So remember, this isn't step 1, be situational, step 2, be personal. No. What I'm saying is that you ask a personal question and you keep it open-ended. If it's an external question, have positive body language, but not lurky, creepy body language. If you say that she's beautiful, maybe don't stare at her breast. Look at her eyes. And if you say, "Oh, wow, that dress is amazing," look at the dress. If it's situational, you might say, "Oh, excuse me, sorry for bumping into you, but this bar is so crowded." It's really sort of the framework that goes in there. It's very much a guide, a simple guide for you to flirt with someone. Your approach and your technique should be going together and merging and overlapping so that you're not someone who only flirts by discussing the external. You get into the personal, you get into the situational, and your technique sort of is happening at all times. You should always be engaged if you are flirting with someone. You should always exude a positive body language. Always ask open-ended questions. Always just go with the flow of the conversation. And occasionally get physical just to make sure that there's attraction there. I'm not saying jump on her or him or them, but, nice to meet you and shake their hand. That is the easiest way to initiate contact that is consensual. And of course, as the conversation goes on, you can gauge attraction more and more easily. Speaking of the conversation going on, these are the things you want to avoid. Everything else should be within bounds, depending on the situation you're in. But these are some things that you really, really want to avoid. First, you want to avoid your romantic past. When I say your romantic past, I mean exes, people you were hooking up with, sexual conquests, anything that involved sort of feelings or emotions around romance, or not even romance, anything that evolved around attraction in a sexual manner, or even a platonic manner, but attraction in any way, shape, or form. This person should not hear about it today, and you may want to wait a very long time before they hear about it. You also want to avoid talking about finances, good or bad. If you make $150K a year, that's awesome. Don't tell this person. Doesn't matter to them at this point. They're just trying to get to know you, and knowing you aren't your money, and vice versa. You don't want to know how much money they're making. Again, you're just flirting. You're just having a conversation. You next want to avoid any talk about sex. I'm a very open sexual person, but if I'm just meeting a girl, I know that if I start talking about sex to her, she is going to immediately assume, 9 times out of 10, she's going to immediately assume that I'm just there to talk about sex and try to hook up with her. So what I do is avoid it completely. If this is someone you go on a date with, maybe that's when you bring it up. But you don't talk about your sexual preferences the first time you meet someone. You want to avoid talk of any trauma. We've all had some experience with trauma in our lives. If not, you eventually will. Everyone does. So what you want to do is not bring that up when you start a conversation with someone who you think is attractive. You do not need to tell her about your parents' divorce and how that shaped you. You do not need to tell her about the time you broke your leg, unless it's a cool story. When I say trauma, I mean like emotional trauma, not like I fell and broke my leg, because it probably is a cool story, actually. You really want to avoid emotional trauma and childhood trauma. Like, let's get to that when you're in a relationship. And finally, you want to avoid your ideal future. And when I say ideal future, I don't mean travel. I don't mean your artisanal cheese company taking off. I'm talking about marriage or not getting married, children or not having children, buying a home, things like that. Things that are really sort of perfect world. I'm going to leave this for my grandkids, or I will never have grandkids, sort of things. Avoid those conversations altogether. Now, you got the approach down, or at least you know how to approach people and what way is the best way to approach people. So what's the best way to get a conversation started? I found that if you don't know the person in any way, you don't have like a secondary connection. So if I'm walking up to a stranger in a bar, I'm going to first externally compliment them, but something nice and unexpected. I found that, and a great way to do this if you're trying to practice in a sort of harmless environment, is to do an external compliment with a bartender or server, but not in a really lurky, creepy way. So a great way that has always worked out for me when flirting, and it's an external approach, is to compliment someone's jewelry. And I'm a straight man, so generally, always, I'm flirting with straight women. It's usually external. And most guys sort of go, "Oh, you're hot, you're so cute." Yes, they know. Women hear it a lot, especially if they're in a very attractive woman. So what you compliment is something that is external about her, but something that she chose. A lot of women don't choose the genetics they're born with. No one chooses the genetics that they're born with. People can change how they look, but people generally don't. Plastic surgery is only so prevalent, so you can only change how you look so much, and most people don't. What you do compliment externally is a choice that she made, he or she. So in my case, it would be, those are lovely earrings. And then it's, thank you. No one says, go fuck yourself. Excuse my language. No one says go fuck yourself if you compliment them on a choice of accessory. Right? So from there, if it's, especially a good example is this So let's pretend I'm in a bar and I'm hitting on a waitress, bartender, or a server. Those are lovely earrings. Thank you. Oh, are you new here? No. Why? Oh, well, I've been here a couple times, so yeah, I haven't seen you around. It's like, oh, yeah, no. It's like, hey, my name's Demetrius. What's your name? Shake their hand. That immediately covered external, situational, and personal. I complimented their earrings. I asked them a personal question about their job. How long have you? Well, I didn't ask how long you've been here. I asked, are you new here? Which maybe isn't the best one. I should have asked, how long have you worked here? And situational is, I'm sitting at a bar. So there you go. Your approach should be, now this is the best approach for me. It might not work for you. I go external, personal, situational. Because one is the superficial first, the next is the personal, and then the situational is sort of broad and vague. It could be about anything. I get physical pretty early on, but then I go back to it. So I may shake hands with a girl, and if, and bear in mind, I have a girlfriend. I mean, I would shake hands with a girl just to sort of initiate contact. If she's squirming away or doesn't want to shake my hand, that's immediately a bad sign. And then I'll strike up a conversation. And if the conversation's going well and the conversation's flowing, which is more important, not only should a conversation flow and you should go with the flow, but if it's not flowing and you're really following my technique, then the chances are she's not attracted to you, or he's not attracted to you, or they. I'm pronoun friendly. So for me, it's always external, personal, situational. Initiate contact early on first with a handshake as an introduction. Go with the flow. If I recognize that the conversation is not flowing, definitely just sort of peter up the conversation and move on and just say nice to meet you. Because a lot of times you can read it wrong. Someone could just not be comfortable and whatever because of whatever is going on, but not necessarily related to you. You end a conversation cordially, so that if this person sees you again, they at least know, oh, that guy's really nice, or that girl's really nice. That we were just talking. You weren't hitting on them, and it wasn't all external, which is great. You always want to mix it up. You may not like the external, personal, situational approach. That might not work for you in a combination pretty quickly, but you don't want to do one of the three things over and over again. If it's external, you sound superficial. If it's personal, it becomes sort of an interview. And you also don't necessarily convey any attraction when you do that. The external really puts on the attraction. The personal conveys the interest, and the situational is sort of a way to break things up. So a nice mix of all of those is good. If you're just doing situational, you sort of seem disinterested. Oh, this game's really good. Yeah, I really like soccer. Yeah, soccer's good. Yep, I watch it all the time. Yep, I'm streaming it on my phone these days. Yeah, I hope the U.S. gets through. Germany's really good. Belgium, it doesn't sound like I'm interested in you. It just sounds like I'm just talking to talk. And a lot of people get into that habit because they don't want to sound superficial. You want to throw it in there. You don't want to be situational. You want to break up I'm talking about what's going on and I'm talking about you now. You can always lead the other way. You can say, wow, this bar is amazing. Oh my God, and you look so great. What's your name? Oh, great. Wow. That's really cool that you work in this bar. I've been coming here for a really long time. Yeah, I know. Actually know the owner. Not that well. I'm just, I just hang out here a lot. Yeah, can I get you a drink at all? Oh, you can't drink at work. Oh, that sucks. Well, that's cool. I mean, maybe I'll see you around, grab a drink. My name is Demetrius, by the way. Nice to meet you. There you go. I may be terrible at flirting. Maybe I suck at flirting, but I'm comfortable with flirting because I know that I can approach people a certain way, and I know the techniques that I have at my disposal, and I know what to avoid. I'm not asking someone when I first meet them, so tell me about your ex. Why are you single? People tend, especially guys, tend to do a why are you single, which isn't really a great topic. So please avoid that at all costs. And again, there isn't a best approach, but if you were going to take my approach, external, personal, situational, quickly get physical with a handshake, and from there, ask some open-ended questions, go with the flow, make sure that your body language exudes attraction and just happiness and happy to be there, and don't sit there looking morose. You really want to look like you're happy to be speaking to this person and look engaged and really connect with them, because looking in someone's eyes really is the very basic, just simple thing to do if you want to attract humans. It just is what it is. People notice when you're not looking at them and when you're moving your eyes around and darting your eyes around the room. And that's it. And again, you can practice this. When you meet new people, flirt. It doesn't mean that you're trying to get in their pants. Just try to talk to them in a way that is actively engaging. Now, the tips that I laid out really are tips for speaking to anyone. I'm calling it flirting for just the ease of calling it flirting, but really, flirting is just trying to attract and be attractive. And attraction doesn't mean necessarily a sexual attraction, but sort of being engaging and being somebody someone wants to talk to. And these tips you can apply not only to dating and talking to girls at bars or dinner parties or where have you, but you can apply this just in networking. These tips, this is how you network with someone. If you're networking, you don't bring up somebody's past. You don't talk about how much money they make. You don't talk about sex. You don't talk about trauma. You don't talk about your ideal future. All you do is talk about them. And you talk about their situation and the situation you're in. You're at a networking event. You talk about the networking event. You ask them their name and where they're from and what they do. You might tell them that they have an awesome briefcase. I just got an awesome briefcase. That's why I brought it up. You make good eye contact. You smile. You ask them open-ended questions. You maybe ask for their business card, which is the getting physical part in this case. And you go with the flow. And once the conversation seems like it's wrapping up, you move on and you talk to someone else. That's all it is. The flirting is really just the attraction. These are tips for attraction, which 9 times out of 10 are flirting. All right, that's it for today. I hope these tips are helpful. And as always, good luck out there. Bye.